don't know how they do, so I don't know.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? No? Okay, thanks, Jeff. Okay, the next board and commission interview is the Architectural Review Board, and we have one candidate, and that's Bridget Tipton.
Another kid?
Sorry, your name, your address, and why you'd like to serve on this board.
My name is Bridget Tipton, 458 West Main Street, and I am interested in serving on this board because it combines a few different of my interests and aptitudes. I've been at Kent JC since 2013, and I have a background and a degree in interior design, and I just completed my graduate degree in architecture last Thursday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I've been an instructor at Kent State in the interior design program for, this will be my 8th year starting. And in between all of that, I worked with DS Architecture and a couple of firms in Akron for about 6 years. So I've prepared documents for the review board. I've presented at Kent's Architectural Review Board, and so I'd like to serve.
Questions for? Yes. Go ahead.
So I'm kind of curious, Bridget, you've been in Kent for a while now.
Yeah.
So how do you think we're doing in terms of, of our approach to architecture?
Yeah, I think, so I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, and so Kent for me is a choice. I'm not from here, I've adopted it, so I take great pride in being a resident of Kent. So architecturally, I think it's been really interesting. I mean, between what the campus is doing, what the city buildings are doing and will be doing, and all of the recent development, I think it's coming together in a way that makes sense, particularly contributing to vibrancy downtown and growth in business and opportunities and great places to eat and drink. And the different architectural styles, some maybe don't appeal to my taste, but it's kind of like the fabric, how they all come together is what makes Kent what it is, and hopefully remains authentic to the idea that it can develop over time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else from council? Garret?
So, is your goal or plans to stay in Kent and stay teaching at the university? So you wouldn't have any problem fulfilling the terms of the board?
Yeah, so I will continue teaching in the university as an adjunct instructor, and my husband and I just recently purchased a second house, so we're not going anywhere. I did demolition this morning.
And is Morgan or any relation to the previous applicant?
Yeah, she's my sister-in-law.
Oh, okay.
We're married to brothers.
Okay.
They're also doing renovations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, the next committee will be
Wow, what is it?
interviewing for is Design and Preservation Committee. We have two candidates, William Dunnick. See here? Name, address, and why you wish to serve on the committee.
I'm William Dunick. I live at 1307 Sunset Way Boulevard in Kent, Ohio. I lived in Kent for the last 22 years. I used it as a going to work every day and working in management in private business. And I was a plant manager and worked with people and also quality assurance. And I'm interested in serving on the committee because I'm retired now after 40 years. I've been retired for 8 years, and I want to get involved in the community and help the community with my skills.
Anybody have questions? John?
What can you bring to the table?
Well, right now I'm volunteering at Hale Farm and Village for the last 5 years in preserving their historical preservation village and farm. I've been doing carpentry work. I'm a carpenter. I love working with my hands. And again, my skills with managing people and knowing people and getting involved with people and understanding people is what I can bring to the table.
Okay, further? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second candidate is Jordan Sinderich. I hope I didn't slaughter that bat last time.
Oh, no, it's good correction.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Jordan Sindrich. I live at 1104 Monroe Falls, Kent Road. I've been a Kent resident for about 4 years. I finished my graduate degree at Kent State, and now I own a house here with my wife, who's also a Kent State graduate. I was applying for a position, honestly, on a committee with the city because public service interests me. Ever since I was a history major, it was something that was always in the back of my head. In my time at Kent, I've studied higher ed administration, I've served the students, I've worked at the university. I now serve as the campus minister for the Catholic students at Kent State University. So my interest in both of the committees that I listed on my form was in service to the students primarily that make Kent such a unique area. So I have a good knowledge of the university, and working in such an intimate way with students that live in the community, not just that go to the university but live here that age. It's something that I have a passion for and something that I do very well.
Okay. Any questions? Gwen?
What is it about this committee that you're most interested in, or what is it that drew you to it?
Yeah, so I believe on my application I put fair housing and the architectural, or the, design committee. In terms of the design aspect, I'm also a carpenter. I work with my hands a lot. I do a lot of furniture making and woodworking, and I enjoy, as a history major, I do enjoy some of the historical aspect of that as well. So it's just really a personal interest of mine. I came into Kent at a time where everyone was just starting to enjoy the renovations and the way that the city looked, and everyone was talking about all the renovations that the city had experienced in the last 10 years, and I got to enjoy that on the back end of it, and I would like to continue that for future students and future people that come to Kent.
Anybody else? Jordan, don't go anywhere, because the next board is Fair Housing Board.
Oh, here we go.
And you have applied for the Fair Housing Board as well. So do you have anything more to add? I think you've pretty much covered that. But.
Yeah, I'll just add that my interest in that board, I've lived in an apartment in Kent. I now own property, so I've had both of those experiences. I've seen some of the different people that live in neighborhoods and some of the people that live in apartments, and there's a big difference between those people. And as part of my higher ed experience, I've studied law, I've studied anti-discrimination law, and as it pertained to higher ed, and thoroughly covered anti-discrimination law with age, race, sex, Title IX, all of those things. So I have some experience with the legal aspects of the fair housing.
Okay.
And that'd be your preferred choice?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions, Roger?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, from your perspective, what do you think are the maybe one or two biggest issues you think in our community that we may have to be addressing with the Fair Housing Board?
I can only give a limited answer because I don't know much about how the Fair Housing Board operates, but I would say that I definitely noticed that especially in the apartment complex that I lived in, we're definitely dealing with a wide range of ages, nationalities, ethnicities, race. There's a lot of different people. I don't know if those people know that the Fair Housing Board exists. Those demographics of people are probably much more susceptible to unfair housing practices. I'm not sure that they even know that a Fair Housing Board exists or how they would lodge complaints in a way that makes sense to them. So I would think that that would be one thing that I'd be interested in finding more about should I be on the board.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Second candidate, Deborah Douglas for Fair Housing Board. Name, address, and why you would like to serve on the board.
My name is Deborah Douglas, 1104 Monroe Falls, Kent Road. I picked Fair Housing Board because I've lived in Kent for 10 years now. My parents first moved here from Strongsville when I started to go to college here. And they picked Kent, even though my parents didn't work here, because they absolutely fell in love with the city. And they said they've never seen a city that had more trees than Kent. We've been here ever since. And I specifically picked Fair Housing Board because ever since I started going to Kent, I've lived in probably most of the apartments that are provided for student housing. And I've lived in the dorms, I've lived with my parents, and then I moved out and I lived on my own. And I've had friends who, lived in both apartments and in different, housings, like renting and different things like that. And throughout my journey of being here 10 years, I've also managed to become or have a good relationship with a couple of the managers that work at some of these apartments. So, and I've done the random roommate thing. So, I've kind of been through it all. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons. And I've heard complaints, I've things not happened. And, so I think from my personal experience, I think I can definitely bring something to this board, so.
Any questions?
Well,
Roger?
I would ask the same question. Is there one particular issue that you think is, that maybe needs some addressing by the Fair Housing Board?
So my personal experience was the last apartment that I lived in right before I bought my very first house, was that a lot of the time I feel like, you try to go to the manager of the apartment and say, hey, this is happening, this complaint is happening, especially when it's a legal issue, and they don't take you seriously. And I feel like, personally, I've been in the shoes of, well, do I then file a legal complaint and call the cops because you don't want to get involved? You want to be anonymous because you don't want any backlash, especially you're a resident there and they kind of have a copy of your key and you just don't know how far it's going to go. And I think, honestly, I wish I would have known about this board because I had really very recently purchased my house about 3-4 months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, yeah, I think that would have been definitely helpful. And I think I'm just one of the very few people who don't know about it, and knowing that there's so many things that you guys, that could be done to help. And I kind of want to help voice that for others who, are having similar problems or, something different even, but that applies to the situation. Thank
Very
you.
good, thank you.
Robin?
Pardon me, Deborah. I was wondering, you're stating that you see some challenges. How are you going to educate the public regarding what's going on, things that you didn't understand regarding how this position would function and, the application of, seeing as how we don't have a fair housing agency, it actually functions in Akron. How would you go about trying to get people to notice that this exists and what you would do to encourage them to be able to go forward and use this apparatus for their good?
Honestly, one of the big things that I wish that was, I think, kind of should really be mandatory is that I think anytime if you're renting especially, I think they should tell you. That should be part of your application where they say, hey, this is a Fair Housing Board. If you have any complaints, you should be able to do that. And I think that should be, a personal thing that every renter should be asked to do. Like if you're renting, because that's something that I honestly didn't know. And if it was on anywhere on my application, I would have read it and I would have known about it. So that would be what my solution would be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there?
Yeah,
John?
Can't
What-
get away that fast.
trying to get out of here, right? What exactly do you think your duties on the Fair Housing Board would encompass?
I'm hoping that I would learn more about what the city is facing. And just within my personality, I love to fix things. And I'm hoping that I could be an advocate for change and help make that change happen. And, kind of looking at all the different things that are happening and the different, whether it be complaints or suggestions, really look at that situation, consider all the options, and bring the best solution possible for that situation.
But what do you think the fair housing people do? What do you think your job is?
I would think that it's hearing complaints and figuring out. Yeah.
What kind of complaints?
I would, from what I understand, it's based on any kind of discrimination or, different things that the Fair Housing Act is put in place for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, in the Parking Action Committee, we have one candidate, and that's Tom Simpson, who was not here. He is not. Okay, we will be voting on the boards and commissions on the next council meeting, April 21st, August 21st. So that is that. And
City project.
City Hall project.
Yes, somewhere in that sea of people out there is Melanie and Nancy. Yeah, there's Nancy and I have Melanie too. So we did want to come back around with you guys. Things, are picking up speed. And one of the things that Melanie said to me, and I think Nancy would reiterate as well, that as we begin to sort of tighten up this concept, it's really important to know that once you sort of do that and give us the general blessing, they'll then proceed into the heavy-duty construction drawings, right? And that's where really they can start fine-tuning pricing and materials, and you'll still have, I don't want to suggest that you're not going to have input in that, you absolutely will. But I know she's not here tonight, but Tracy had asked about the cost issue of the building, and I don't know exactly, I got the impression she wanted to either get an update or see what that price is going to be, and I think what I wanted to explain tonight, unfortunately she's not here though, is that we're still, I think, working within the parameters. I know it's been a while, but back in 2018, there were 2 back-to-back meetings where you were presented the space plan and sort of a range of costs based on average square feet, basically. And it was anywhere from 5.2 to 5.7, if my memory. And I just wanted to reaffirm, as you get ready to, as I say, bless this concept and send Nancy back and to really dig into those construction drawings, that she can reassure you that she's still working within that price range. And Melanie pointed out, in particular, if there's great heartburn that's changed since that 5.2 to 5.7, the kind of staff needs to know, Nancy's going to need to know that, because as she selects materials, she'll select the cheapest material. Anything she could do, I know, not cheap's the wrong word, least expensive, I don't know, sorry. I'm butchering this, but I should probably shut up. But I just want to set the context that there is a little bit of we're looking for a reaffirmation, kind of that's still a good price range for you guys, and she'll tell you it's still a good price range for where she's at, where she sees the building landing is still in that range, and she has some flexibility based on kind of the materials and so forth and so forth. So did you want to do a better job of explaining that, or, okay.
You go, Mom. I just wanted to start, so I wanted to take a little bit of a step back. One of the things that we did was we took some boards to Heritage Fest, and I think you guys got all of that information back. And while it wasn't, hundreds of thousands of postcards, I thought it was a good return from what we got with a lot of information, really affirming that you guys are kind of staying right on the right track. You're doing what the citizens really want, and that is that they want this to be welcoming to the public, and I think that we're going to accomplish that. They're looking at it to be a city unity spot and a place for community gatherings, and we're going to end up with something of that nature. The gathering space, they had several options of what we could do with that open space. So I thought that was really encouraging. So I was really excited from that. So as we move from this tonight, and we will be following this meeting up after tonight with staff to actually specifically look at space. So some things may get smaller, some things, a little bit bigger, or they might get moved around. But we're going to stay within the block that you have there. But it'll be great then to be able to come back, because I still think that we'd like to take one walk through with making an open public meeting. That is something you guys had asked for, and I'd like to continue to make sure that we do that just beyond the Heritage Fest. Having said that, addressing a little bit of the money, Nancy will get into the square footage and stuff, but remember there's a range of everything from, just like you see in commercial space, from $100 a square foot to as much as $500 a square foot. And so those will be the numbers that we're looking at as we begin to look and select materials, and we come back to you with the different options. The beauty, if you remember, that they pointed out to us is that they can give us the look with several different grades of different things. One of the things we talked about was the glass and how they were going to adjust that, and the fins, and the ability to make sure that we were shielded from the sun. All of those have parameters and ranges that they're going to work within, along with the bricks and the color of the bricks. So again, while we're trying to get us down to a plan so we can then begin to go back and look at the the drawing board with the staff to make sure that the spaces are exactly what they want, then they can really begin to hone in on those specifics. Rest assured, we will still be back when we're looking at those type of material selections with options for you. So having said that, I'll let you go over the floor plans.
I just want to give you guys a quick update. Again, for those, I'm Nancy Nozick from Branstetter Carroll, the architecture firm working on the new City Hall project. So what we've been doing, again, the feedback from Heritage Festival basically said, yeah, we're on the right track. And everything that you all have brought to the table was reiterated from the community, from at least the feedback, not only from the postcards, but from who we were talking to as we were standing around that day. So I think that's good. We want to make sure we stay on the right track. So the next step we're scheduling a meeting with the different departments, that little committee that we put together to delve into the floor plans more. What you have in front of you is actually another iteration. We've actually, without compromising any of the functional spaces, we took out about 3,000 to 4,000 square feet out of the building floor plan from the last time you saw it. So we're going to go into these plans, are going to be distributed to the departments before we meet, so we can get into them in more detail. But just kind of, we took a half a bay out of the one length of the building, and we kind of honed in on the council chambers side of the building. We need to get the square footage down a little bit, and so we're trying to find easy ways to do that before we do the hard ways. One of the things I'll point out in looking at it, the council chambers room that we have planned basically is the width of this room and twice the depth of this room. So it's almost twice as big as this room and close to a square, and that seems to be pretty big. Now, when you have a day when it's the last council meeting before school starts and every student needs to come to a meeting, it'd be great to have all that extra space. So that's some of the things that we're thinking about, is the reality of what that space is and where we can cut some square footage. So when we were doing the concept planning, we said we think the building programmatically needs to be between 21,500 and 23,000 square feet. What you're looking at there is 24,000 square feet of programmed space. But that does not include, we have a 2-story council chambers. That air of that second floor, while it's just air, there's walls around it, so there's a certain dollar amount we have to place on that, and the 2-story lobby as well. So if we add that square footage in, we're closer to 28,000 square feet, but we price that out a little bit differently. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. I just want you to be aware that programmatically, we're pretty close to where we thought we would be, including all of the lobby space and the hallways. But we want to try and continue to hone this down, at the same time looking at developing the look of the building with that as a guideline, but refining it and getting into more detail, and what the materials are, and the cost-effective nature. Cost-effective materials, not cheap materials, and how we deal with all of that. So that's where we're moving towards, and we really need to sit down and dive deep with the department heads, and then we'll come back to you with the result of that. The other things that are going on, Melanie and I have been talking about, we're going to get the bid documents together for the demolition of the existing building, so we kind of get that out of the way, and make sure it's dealt with properly, so we're prepared to put a new building in its place. And we're getting a survey of the area and things like that, so we're moving forward with those things as well. So that's the update of where we are today.
Do we have any questions from council? John?
Going over this, the first thing that popped out to me is that, you might be able to shave about 10 foot off that council chambers and wouldn't hurt anything. And everything looks great. It's not exactly how I would do it, but I'm not everybody in the city. But it looks great. I think you've done a wonderful job. And if it had some solar panels on the roof, it'd be perfect.
Absolutely.
Roger?
I had a question from a citizen, and I wasn't sure how to respond. They like the overall look of the building and the porch in the front, that portico, or whatever we call it, across the front. would it be possible, since you have anchoring on both sides where the two doors are, would it be possible to get rid of those skinny little posts in the middle? In other words, have that where it says Kent City Hall, having that being supported a different way.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere instead of having those there, because that kind of breaks it up a little bit.
yeah,
And,
yeah, we can look at that as we move
I mean, I
forward.
could see it going either way, but it made sense to me when I was looking at that, that if there's a way of doing it, I think it would be a cleaner look. You'd be looking straight in.
Our teeth, as we
Yeah,
lovingly
the teeth,
refer to
yeah.
them, right?
Yeah, we keep going, we keep,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna punch out the.
Yeah, yeah, let's, yeah.
And I said, I could see the point, you know, it would seem like that. Can I ask a second question, Mr. Mayor, acting mayor? You said you cut out 2,100 square feet roughly?
2,000, 3,000, something like that, yeah.
Okay, did it impact the functionality once we get this built? And does it impact the functionality 10 years from now?
We have, in the previous version, we had a lot of unassigned and future space. So we still have, we took out a whole 10-foot bay of the building that took out a little bit of that, but there's still a lot of space in there. We have multiple conference rooms, multiple storage rooms, so there's still a lot of flexible space in there. So we do want to make sure that we're planning for the future, but we also want to make sure we get in budget. So it's a balancing act there. It always happens in projects where, oh, we got to get it in budget, and you start cutting things, and then the minute you start building it, you regret that you cut that out. So it's a balancing act. We took kind of there was some easy stuff that I thought we could cut out of the building at this point in time. When we meet with all the department heads, we'll see if we made the right decision and make sure that we still have enough for the future flexibility.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I think it's ironic we have all these young people here tonight, and quite candidly, a lot of us that are going to be making some of these decisions in the end, we're not going to be around to see ultimately what this place is going to be doing 25, 30 years from now. So I always like to protect their ability to be able to utilize a facility for something that we don't know, because we don't know what the city of Kent's going to look like 25, 30 years from now. But
Yeah.
we know one thing for sure. It's a heck of a lot cheaper to build it now than to wait 20 or 30 years and start putting additions on, because we haven't done our due diligence for these young people here. So that's my only concern, that we need to keep that focus. It's hard, I understand, because of budgetary constraints, but I also understand that 10 years ago, it would have been a hell of a lot cheaper to build it than it's going to be right now to build it.
And when we get to the point of really delving into those numbers, we can give you some of those, and if you want this, that's the financial, the capital cost impact of that. And then we can also help you understand what that means in terms of actually financing the building. Because an extra, $200,000, $500,000 may sound like a lot, but when you go and look at what is it really going to impact the term of a bond or whatever it is, how you're going to pay for it, incrementally may not be that big of an impact, and you look at what's the value of that. So there's lots of ways to make those decisions as we move forward, and we'll bring all that information to you.
Cool, thank you.
Other questions, Gwen?
I just have a question on the topography of the first floor where council chambers are. Is it ground level, So for visitors who want to come to a city council meeting, it looks like they're coming in from the parking lot and they're entering the lobby and then taking either the stairs or the elevator downstairs.
Correct.
To council chambers.
Correct.
So the council chambers is a little bit sunken, is that correct?
Well, the whole lower level is at the street level out front.
Okay. All right, so
The middle level is at parking lot level behind.
Okay.
So we're playing with that a little bit.
I just
So,
wasn't, I guess more specifically, I wasn't sure if it would be possible on the council, which it may or may not be, depending on how you excavate it, and to have like an exit or something, a doorway there. So if somebody, wanted to, if you.
We need to have an exit, and right now we're actually showing an exit towards the south. That may need to
Just
go out.
the back
It may
there.
need to go out towards the west, the way the topography works, because
Okay.
again, that the east side of that room is going to be half in the ground.
Okay, that explains it.
But we do need an egress out of that, and so we do need to make sure we consider that as
I
we
just want to make sure
plan
our
it.
fire inspector is satisfied.
Oh, don't worry. Are they in the, somebody's
Oh,
in the
good,
back.
there, good.
Yeah,
Good.
oh, yeah,
That-
absolutely,
I hope you heard me.
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
So when you go home tonight, and have your beverage of choice and you sit to yourself and say to yourself, man.
You're telling me to go home and have a beverage of choice? All right.
I'm sure you have to. That's, when you sit down and you say, man, they're really missing it. What do you, what makes you, what do you think council and the administration is not addressing that we should?
So far, nothing. And I think there are many things that you all have brought to the table that we are not showing on here yet. A lot of the sustainability elements that we've talked about, but they're not physically represented yet. Once you get to the point of saying, no, let's not do this and let's not do that, then I might be able to answer that question better. But to date, I think it's been a good back and forth, and you've brought a lot of good things to the table, and I don't know that there's anything glaring out there that you're missing in terms of design or functionality or consideration.
Or size?
Or size, yeah. You know, you don't, it's hard. A city hall wants to be a prominent government structure and stable and welcoming and all these kinds of things for the community, but yet nobody wants you to spend money on a city hall. You know, police and fire are different people, but, you know, why do we, so it's a balancing act because they want it to be this kind of monumental structure, yet they don't want you to put a whole lot of money into it. So there are a lot of ways we can do that with the right kind of materials that give it the right level of finish, but it's not real mahogany on the wall. It's a, you know, a laminate that looks like wood. You know, there are different things that we can do to give you the right feel and appearance without blowing the budget and making it appropriate for the project.
You can't make chicken salad out of chicken crap at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true. So there are certain things we won't do. You know, what we look at, it's got to be, all the materials have to be durable, easy to maintain, and look good without being marble, you know. So there's, okay. We'll get there,
Thank you.
Garrett. We'll get there.
Okay, thank you.
Further for Nancy? Thanks so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start our committees. Mr. Kuhar, you're first.
Community development. Ah, yes.
Okay, Bridget?
You're up. Go ahead, he said. You got the green light.
Your
Yeah.
name is Bridget?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. I was getting myself organized. I've got like the next four, so.
You're getting names mixed up tonight.
As you are aware, in 2016, council authorized the rental licensing program to be expanded to include rentals of single-family structures that were not covered by the health department. When that happened, the assistant law director and I worked with the former health commissioner on making sure Title VII, the housing code, basically was compatible across both programs. There was one area, however, where we had some differences. The health department and the city uses civil offense or civil enforcement for compliance with the rental licensing program, but the former health commissioner did want certain language kept in there as a backdoor protection if he needed it. That included some language that referenced a criminal offense of the misdemeanor, and also the ability of him to assign a fine, and also the ability to instill a fine of $3,000 in certain instances. The assistant law director and I are here before you, along with Hope, the law director, to remove that language. We would like the health department and the community development department's language with regards to enforcement to be exactly the same, which is the civil offense. And we are also requesting a change in the section where the health commissioner was able to assign a fine of up to $3,000. We still are okay with that language, but we'd like to reduce that to 1,000. 3,000 actually exceeds, for example, a misdemeanor is 1,000 and a fifth-degree felony is 2,500. So the 3,000 seems a bit excessive, and it could be challenged in court. So the assistant law director and Hope suggested moving that down to 1,000. So I could take questions?
Yeah.
Questions from Roger? I didn't see it down there.
I keep a low profile, Jeff.
Okay, good.
Bridget, is part of this also part of our ongoing work with our amending our whole,
Yes.
our
As you know, the only constant is that I'm before you all the time.
I know.
Making adjustments to ordinances that are passed. Because as you know, once something is operationalized,
Right.
or, and actually, so we even corrected some typos that we had in there. So yes, it is an ongoing part of that. The program is up and running. We've done about a little over, about 190, almost 200 inspections and licensings, and it's gone fairly well.
So this is also part of our zoning code?
This
No?
is not. This
It
is under
won't-
the
it
housing
won't be?
code. No, this is basically under Title VII of the housing code.
Okay.
And it also references the 50113, which is the civil offenses code. So that's under the general
Okay.
codified.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anybody from the audience like to speak to this issue? Please come forward, and your name and address at the microphone.
Bernie Noble, Mogador Road. I'm here on behalf of my tenants. They're long-term tenants in Kent. I was telling them about this program after I read about it in the paper. Number one, they don't want inspectors in their homes. One of the loudest voices I heard was from Walton County Workman, used to be a city employee. They really feel that it's an invasion of their Fourth Amendment privacy. They don't want to pay the extra fees, and they don't want to be bothered by inspectors. The rest of the tenants kind of felt the same way, so I took it upon myself to come and present. We'd really like to see council remove that from single-family rentals. So I don't think it's needed or wanted by us, the citizens.
Thank you.
Is there anything that I can do to prompt this?
You know, basically, when you speak before council, we listen.
Okay.
We don't respond or,
All right.
and after you leave, we still are thinking about what you said, so we
All
don't
right.
forget about you.
All right, well, I got some paperwork here I pulled off the interweb. And maybe you can pass them around to everybody.
To the clerk.
Thank you. I'm not the only landlord that's, I don't even like to call myself a landlord. These people don't even want to see me in their home unless there's a problem. Then they really want somebody to come fix the problem, not being me. Like say if the heater furnace goes out, they want to see Greer Heating come and fix it. So I guess we'll be talking about this again in the future, so.
Thank you very much for coming, Bernie.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can see half of you. Come forward. Yeah, you and then the other lady afterwards. Come to the mic, your name and your address. You have 3 minutes, please.
I am Carla Bacto. I've been a landlord this December 40 years. In the city of Kent, I have owned, built, I did construction for years with my husband and his business. But, you know, I guess when you all were implementing this, and I'm here because I received emails and I've been asked to come, I don't think we have a chance. I live at 705 Judson Road. I'm in the township, but I still pay all your city taxes. I don't have a voice other than this. I kind of felt like I was left out of a lot of the decision-making because of that. But if I had to ask questions that I want you to be thinking about is, One, how do they pick the people that they're going to start with to do these inspections? It was never stated how this was going to randomly be done or by a certain category. And then I also wanted to ask, is it made public? After you do an inspection, can I find out who or what or how other landlords or other people are being assessed? I'm a minority, and I never like to use that. I'm a woman. I get it. But I really believe that if you believe in something, you need to stand up and address it. And I believe that sometimes our tenants aren't always heard. And again, I don't think they want their privacy. They feel alienated when you do that. I guess the other thing is I wanted to state is a couple questions to be thinking about. Like, after they do these inspections, and believe me, I pay a lot of money to do these inspections. Not only do I pay an initiation, or whatever you call it, inspection fee, but I'm paying $5 for every room in that house, okay? Later, they credited me back because then it was bedrooms, which, again, I guess nothing was ever sent to us with a statement as to what you're looking for. My homes get inspected. My insurance company, some of them are programs through the government, and they're inspected. I take a lot of pride in making sure that I give good tenants and they stay a long time. Who sets the guidelines? And where do we go with the guidelines if they aren't actually, I build houses. So are they federal guidelines? Are they local guidelines? What are they going off of for building? I'm having some issues with some things that they're asking us to do that are not in the code. And I know that you're just the board, but I'm glad that you're giving me a chance to speak up. How about the length of time? And then, who are we targeting? Are we just targeting landlords, or are we targeting everyone across the board? It's just something to think about. I have a whole lot more, but I know I really want to say so. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
The fee reduction.
Mr.
Another
Kuhar.
lady in the
Mr.
back.
Kuhar. I noticed that, and although I'm sure that these landlords have a lot of things that they would like to talk council about, as a rule of order, they're off point on what Bridget was bringing to council. She was bringing, changing the code from criminal to civil, and then the 3,000 to 1,000 typographical errors. So I would ask you, Mr. Chairman, if you would keep the points from the audience to those issues.
Okay, so if the audience understands this, if they want to speak on the issues they're speaking about this evening, they should do it at a regular council meeting, and on the committee meeting, they should stick to the point of the topic.
Correct, sir. Yes, thank you.
Now, given that being said, is there anyone left that wants to speak on the topics of the text this evening? That being said, back to council.
Move to authorize. You want emergency, with emergency?
Second.
When's that next meeting happen?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, please.
2 weeks. 7:30.
Did I hear a second?
I seconded it.
Yes, Gwen second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes?
Thank you.
Okay, now we have the updated MOU between the city and Portage County NSP program income.
Yes, for members of council that were not part of the group back in '09, the city received a portion of neighborhood stabilization program funding as part of the stimulus money that occurred after the housing crisis. The money was allocated to a region, and our region included Portage County, the cities of Kent and Ravenna. And Portage County acted as the grantee, and the cities of Ravenna and Kent were subrecipients. Ravenna and the city received $350,000. The city used that to demolish 9 structures, and we built 2 new properties on 2 of those sites after the homes had been demolished. We were the only entity that did that, and we actually generated program income. In other words, we were successful, and we generated about $139,000 when the houses were sold. The issue became that we were a subrecipient under this NSP program, but in HUD's world, we were always an entitlement direct recipient of CDBG money. So there was only 2 communities in the entire state that received money as part of a regional subrecipient agreement with their county, but also as a direct entitlement from HUD. So they actually did not know how to let us spend that money. So we've been holding those funds in a bank account since about 2012 with accrued interest, waiting for guidance from HUD and the state of Ohio on how we can expend those dollars. We received that clearance in 2018 that we were going to be able to use those funds for a CDBG eligible project. So if you remember, I was before you with a substantial amendment to add the funds to the Kentway project. We have committed CDBG money to repair and upgrade 4 units out at Kentway, which provides rental housing for low-income seniors. This funding will allow us to make some of those ADA accessible. So in order to do that, the state wanted us to get clearance from the county. The county is in support. They also find the project to be worthy. The issue is none of the commissioners present now were actually the ones that signed the original MOU. So they have asked for a new MOU and an addendum to that original subrecipient agreement so that it reflects what is current now but still gives that historic context. So I'm here to ask for that authorization to execute those documents with emergency so we can move it forward to the county.
Okay, any questions on that topic?
So how much
Garret?
money have we had since 2012? I'm sorry if I missed that.
139,000.
Anybody else from council? Anybody from the audience like to speak on this? Back to council?
Move to authorize with emergency.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes? Oh, any discussion?
That's too late.
A little late out too. All right, that concludes the community development.
I'd like to call the Street Sidewalks and Utilities Committee to order. The first thing on our agenda tonight is proposed downtown parking ordinance change.
Yes, I'm going to just stay here for a little bit. We were approached by Tom Simpson, owner of the Kent Stage, because during one of our recent events he had, there were some of his patrons as well as some of the performer support team did receive parking tickets. It is not enforced on a regular basis, but the city's code does have 2-hour parking limit that begins at basically 8 a.m. and runs all the way up till 3 a.m. Mr. Simpson asked that we consider removing that restriction and allowing extended or unlimited parking from 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. because the 2-hour limit is constraining if someone is coming, for example, to do dinner and a show. We did take this matter before Traffic Engineering and Safety Committee, which is an internal committee to the administration of department heads. They voted unanimously on this recommendation. It was also taken to the Parking Action Committee, who also voted unanimously on the council approved this recommendation. So I'm here before you to ask for the changes to section 353.02. To allow for those changes. I did, you saw the draft, but I did send it to Chief Lee. She found she added some parking and additional language. You'll be getting that in the formal legislation. But basically, the primary change is to allow for that extended parking on the mapped, the streets in the mapped area that represent basically the core downtown.
Any questions from council? Yes, John.
You say that in the core downtown, this is unlimited parking from 5 till
3 a.m.
3 a.m.
And still restricted no parking from 3 to 6 a.m. And of course, it will not be in place if a snow ban was issued by the service department.
Other questions from council? Questions from the audience? Anyone to this issue? Back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Discussion.
Thank you.
Okay. The second item on our agenda is proposed street closure event for the Creativity Festival.
Yeah, and I mean, I can, well, we're all here, but you may recall last year that the Creativity Festival, kind of at the last minute, had to be pulled out of concerns for safety in light of a rally, talk of a rally, an open carry gun rally. Not that they've always been peaceful, which is fine, but there was concern by local parents and the school system about having their children around potentially automatic weapons and things like that. So Kent State, out of, an abundance of caution, decided to not do the event last year. So this year, they don't want to miss it again. And so basically, the committee, there's a large group of committee that includes some of our folks, and Dan and Harrison as well, and kind of came up with, how about a plan B? And the theory is, if at the last minute there turns out to be something that could be problematic on the Esplanade again, can we move the event off the Esplanade into the Erie Street? And so that's essentially the background behind it, and in order to do that, it falls under the category as a new street closure event. It's not a new event per se, but in case, rather than canceling, they would like the opportunity to close a portion of Erie Street close to the Esplanade so that they could still hopefully hold the event. I don't know if there's any more specifics you want to offer. No? Okay, that's it.
Any questions from council? Yeah.
The only thing I would ask is what's the window of opportunity, and how soon do we have to notify the public of street closures? And or is that something that we can work around?
Normally, the no parking postcards go up 72 hours before the event, so as long as we feel like we can make a decision within 72 hours, we could do that.
Other questions from council? Yes.
This is only Plan B.
Yeah, only in the event of a
Yes.
situation where the event could not be on campus. Yeah.
It goes all the way to Main Street, not just to Peister, correct?
It goes just to water, so it should be,
Water, yeah.
yeah, from DePeister to water, yeah. So
Main Street's
DePeister would still remain open for KSU Hotel and Conference Center traffic and part of buses, but the Erie Street portions would be closed.
Okay. Other questions from council? Seeing none, anyone from the community wish to speak to this issue? Seeing none, back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second?
Any comments? Seeing no comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. Thank you. The third agenda item for street sidewalks and utilities is to renew the city ODOT bridge inspection agreement. That's something like we do every year, right? Or every 3 years. I remember this. Okay.
I think Jim was hoping I would have had explained it all by the time he got here, but
I can take care of it. That's fine. Yeah, this one is fairly simple. Since 2014, ODOT has performed the necessary federal requirements for inspection, load rating, and scour evaluation on bridges, and we own about 10 or 11 bridges in the city. ODOT started doing that in 2014. Every 3 years we come and ask for renewal to sign a consent legislation to have them keep doing that for us, and this would do it from 2020 to 2022 at no cost to us.
Okay. Questions from council? Seeing none, questions from the community? Seeing none, back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second?
Any comments? John? No. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Okay, last one is proposed joint easement with PARTA for the new bus shelter at Kentway. Oh, Jim's
Yep,
up.
I'm here.
you got it.
Okay, great. So, as you know, we signed an MOU or agreement with PARTA to jointly install bus passenger shelters in residential areas, and actually, one of the council members had suggested Kentway as a good place for it. We've been working with PARTA to find a good place to put that, and we've found the spot, but it's actually off the city right away behind the sidewalk. Would be the safest place to put it, which is on Kentway's property. Kentway has agreed to grant us an access easement for $1 so that we could put in the concrete pad and PARTA can put up the shelter to improve service to that area. So we're asking for requesting your approval to execute that access agreement.
Any questions from council? Any questions from the community, or anyone want to speak to this? If not, back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. That's the end of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee.
Okay, now we'll go right into finance. The East Main Street Transportation Improvement Funding Applications.
Yeah, so Jim's looking at me, he's seeing if I'm going to have an introduction for this. He knows how, look, we're really excited about this, and I guess I'm supposed to be neutral all the time on these points, but I can strongly recommend things, right? So I am going to say, as we lead into this, we have, as Jim can tell you very specifically, we have one of the least safe street sections in, not one of, it is the least safe corridors for traffic and pedestrians, East Main Street, and in both Portage County and Summit County, we're the worst. And that's terrible news for us because we take pride on being a safe city, a nice sized city, the right scale for walking, biking, and driving, and certainly we have a whole lot of students that enter our community for 9 months a year, and everything we try to do is meant to be as safe and welcoming and friendly as possible, and that's not. And so that's the bad news. The good news is when you've got a problem like that, you've got a pretty strong case to make when you go to funding agencies to say, we need some help. We have some ideas here that we think can improve the situation, but we don't have the resources to pay for it. So, as you know, we've talked about this many times, that that's a critical aspect of what we've been able to bring, going all the way back to the downtown redevelopment, Summit Street, North Water Street, and now we're talking about East Main Street. We've had some great success with the kind of partnerships that we're using again here too. This is both a city, a neighborhood, and Kent State University partnership. And I personally think it's going to be potentially one of the most significant transforming corridors, not just safety, but what it can do for the community is going to have that kind of wow effect, just like the other projects I mentioned have had. So I'm really excited about it. I'm particularly excited because Jim thinks he's got extremely competitive proposals going into the funding agencies. And if you recall the way this process works, he's been working how many months, 18 months or so, with the neighborhood, with Kent State and engineering firms, kind of looking at the problems and what some of the types of solutions would be out there. And you've seen some of that in here, and he showed a video that one time, which was, or Mike Bruder showed the video, and but he's got other things, and he's certainly in step with the neighborhood. But in order to apply for the money, we have to have enough to know kind of what some of the fixes are going to look like. Well, we don't have plans yet. That's part of what getting the money is all about, is to have the money, then really hire somebody to do plans, and kind of like what we're doing with the City Hall project. We have a concept, and then we move forward into really kind of the details. So tonight, he's not here to roll out any set of plans or anything, but I can tell you the ideas that I've heard and seen coming out of the group, the team of people, and trust me, I live in the neighborhood over there, so I hear about it as people walk their dog. Paula's back there. Sorry. But truthfully, this is a critical, I think, a critical opportunity for us, and I don't want to miss it. So that's really my extra long preamble, and I apologize for that, but I really think it's important. It's a tremendously significant opportunity for the future of our community in that corridor. So with that, Jim.
Thank you. I made up for the last two.
Yeah.
So, as Dave said, this has been a long process, and this has been a process that you guys have fostered, helped along the way. We've signed agreements with Kent State to study it, then we amended the agreement to continue studying it. You guys, some of you, council members and mayors, have come to the Citizens Advisory Committee meetings and seen what we've going through. And just 2 months ago, you approved the purpose and need, which sort of sets the framework that we're trying to meet those guidelines in there to help move forward. This next 2 months is a very important step. We will either have something after this or we won't, okay? And I'm very proud of all the work that the Citizens Advisory Committee has done and the university has done as I take these concepts to the funding agencies and I hear back from them how to make this the best grant ask that we can make. So this is a big step. It's also a big problem, as Dave mentioned. So just as a reminder, he mentioned the worst corridor in Summit and Portage County. Give you some idea, from 2016 to 2018, 12% of all crashes citywide happened in that 0.8 miles of road. We have 90 miles of road. We had 12% of them right there. We had 15% of all pedestrian crashes were in that same 0.8 mile stretch of road. So we have a significant problem. I think all you would expect us to be addressing that significant problem, but we also have a great opportunity, okay? With what's been going on with the neighborhood and all the, I don't want to put this, the involvement that they have brought to the table, I think what we're coming through with is a much greater plan than we could come up with on our own. I believe at the last meeting, and Paul, I don't know if you remember, after we presented here the general concepts of what's going to be included, the one question that stood out to me was, Jim, do you really think we can get this? I don't remember if that was your question or not. It was yours, wasn't it? Yeah, and I believe the answer is yes, because it's such a great solution. And then the other thing is, as far as opportunity, right now, Kent State's Gateway Plan is an opportunity to make changes on campus that dovetail in with the changes needed on East Main to make it safer and more a place to help enhance the neighborhood to the north, not to cut off the neighborhood to the north. So with great problems, we do have great opportunities. Briefly, the last meeting that we met, here's some basic key elements that are good, that are in the plan. First off, it's going to be 4 through lanes. We're going to have a wider sidewalk on the north side, an actual tree lawn on the north side, have bus pull-offs so that when the buses stop, they can get off the roadway, facilitate service for transit as well as moving traffic. It will be projected to be a tree-lined boulevard through that area with a park-like feel on the south side and a bike facility connecting the existing bike facilities at Willow all the way to Horning on the south side. And we're going to include, enhance, improve the lighting into that corridor. That's as far as we got at sort of the general aspects. Now there's a bunch of work to get into that detail. So right now, we have 3 asks at this time. One for the ODOT Highway Safety Program for $7.5 million in grant funding for design, right-of-way, and construction. That process is a little convoluted. We're sort of in the middle of it right now, but in the end, there'll be a presentation in Columbus basically asking for the money in September. AMAT's Surface Transportation Block Grant Program is $3.6 million we're asking for construction. That's due August 30th. And ODOT's and AMAT's Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Grant for $6 million for construction. That was actually submitted July 19th because it was due last month. But we can always take it back if necessary. But that would be to move forward again with construction. We have other plans for future asks to help offset funding with OPWC, Municipal Paving Program, Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program, and others that their time's not now, but in the future we will pursue as we move forward. And our goal is to have the city fund 10% of the costs for the project from beginning to end. So, give you a brief idea of the schedule. We're looking at these funding monies for construction become available 2024 and 2025. So that's when we'd be looking about moving forward with the construction. So with that, we're requesting your approval to submit for those 3 grants.
Do you have to do them separately?
The ordinances?
No, would they be separate?
Not, I think that because it's one project, that would be the single subject.
So you could just do it as one?
Yeah, yeah.
Is there any questions?
So what's the total cost? I'm sorry if I missed that.
I didn't say it.
I need to bite my pen real well.
It's $20 million is the total
$2 million
cost.
commitment on the
$2 million commitment over 5 years, with the first upfront years being a smaller amount, because the design would be around $200,000 over the next couple of years, then right away for about another $100,000, and then the bigger number coming in 2024.
And in comparison to scope of Summit Street, in terms of what was the cost of that?
Summit Street was $17 million.
17 million.
Yes, so this basically the price of inflation
Yeah,
over that
yeah.
time period. Mhm.
And it would be equivalent in scope to what we did up there, basically.
Yes. Mhm.
Besides cost. just-
Correct. Yeah, and I guess I would mention, I'm glad you brought that up. I would mention, it's been almost a year since Summit Street's been opened, and at this point, the traffic crashes have been reduced by over 50%. And considering there was over 200 crashes in that corridor in 3 years, that's a significant impact citywide, so.
Thank you.
Jim, the south side of that corridor, that's all state property. Does that help us in terms of our application process? Or does it hurt us?
It helps us greatly, but it helps us the most because we're hoping to have a similar structure as with Summit Street, where we can build sidewalk on Kent State property and not stay in the right-of-way.
Oh,
So
okay.
that gives us more room to expand south.
So that points out then how significant Kent State has been working with the neighborhoods and working with the city?
Yes, and Kelvin's here tonight. He's been to every meeting. Several people in Kent State, and Paul is here. And they've been at those meetings, and yes, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the possibility of Kent State moving forward.
I think that's important for our community here.
It is.
Further questions? Is there anyone from the audience like to speak on this issue? Back to council?
Would authorize with emergency.
Second.
Discussion?
It's just, when you look at the project on Summit Street and you consider all the safety concerns, and it's the proverbial no-brainer, and the costs the benefits we'll get for the cost that the city has to put in are great, and I have to always mention an appreciation for what Kent State and Calvin and what they're willing to bring to the table in terms of partnering. It's such a great partnership on Summit Street. I gotta believe it's gonna help our cause for East Summit Street also, so.
John?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. You know, some of the issues that we had on Summit Street, I didn't quite see them with the roundabouts and that, but I didn't know the road was going to be split. And I travel that route every day, and it's definitely a nice, you have a safer feeling with that type of a division in the roadway. So I think it's definitely going to be a benefit to East Main Street. Now, if we could just figure out how to keep the people from texting while driving, we could probably reduce it 75%.
Further? Roger?
Mike Bruder was spectacular on Tuesday. He came to Rotary and he talked about the overall project, and we had a number of people in Rotary that happened to live, our Dave's neighbors, who live there, and one in particular who's real active on the committee. And the response from the community members who were there was just overwhelming, and they actually had the same response. Is this possible that we're going to be able to do that? So any dollars that, kudos to you and your department for going after these dollars, because I think the community will be real pleased when this is done.
Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Chap.
Mr. Coffey, 2019 Budget Appropriations Amendment. I don't know. Don didn't put him last.
Don, you're supposed to put them last.
Right, right.
They added these after.
Gee, I'm tired after that walk over here. Did you wish to do a preamble?
You're good. This
Okay.
is-
Good evening. I'm here to request council committee authorization for the appropriation amendments as I've outlined in my July 31st memorandum to the city manager. I would note just that there's one item under fire and EMS for $4,000 that's contingent upon the committee's next agenda action. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Pardon?
That's why you go last.
Yeah, I get a break.
Yeah, that's why.
Any questions from council?
Because this has to be approved.
Seeing none, anyone from the audience? Back to council.
Move to authorize.
Second. With emergency.
Oh, with emergency, yes.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Didn't ask for the opposed.
Okay, opposed. Okay, now, the authorization to sell the retired heavy-duty rescue truck. That's, who's going to do that? You?
Oh, He's, sorry, Hope was talking to me. We're talking about the sale of the fire truck, yes? Yes. So Chief's been trying to sell this thing. He's been driving around now. He's had it online, website, and I mean, literally, it was one of those situations where he called me up and he said, man, we just got an offer, which I'm delighted because I was just getting ready to lower the price. Don't tell that community that. But another community is interested in purchasing our used vehicle, which we have since replaced. And in order to do that, we need your official blessing. And so I don't know if you want to give any details on that, Chief. I mean, I wrote it in the memo or it's in your, but you can just, for the benefit of the audience, just.
Yeah, I think that overall this is a very good deal for the city. To put in perspective, we sold that 1991 Telescourt in 2014 for $13,000. And this is a little bit older than that truck was at the time. So I think overall it's going to a small volunteer department in Pennsylvania who really need it. They run like a 400 square mile area, a lot of river rescues, and we can certainly relate to that. But I'm just asking permission to sell that. I think overall it's a very good deal. We have done our research on that. We did do a lot of comparisons nationwide to trucks about that age and size and configuration, and that was right in line with what we've been offered.
Discussion? Garret?
Did you offer to throw in a couple of those canoes that have been left over in there?
Just strap them to the roof.
Just strap, take them, please. That's
Further from
nothing
council?
further, I'm sorry.
Anyone from the audience? How much?
$40,000.
Move to authorize with emergency.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Yeah,
Certification.
Yeah, we have the housekeeping item pretty much. Once a year, Dave will compile his list of folks that are in arrears, and pending your approval, we would like to certify those names and amounts to Portage County Auditor's Office, I guess, to be applied as a tax lien against the property for hopes of future collections.
I was just checking to see if my name was on there first.
Yeah, right. Everyone's looking.
You would have known by now.
I will let you know, right, Mike?
Any questions for council? Anybody from the audience? No.
Good, Bernie.
Move to authorize with emergency.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That is it for me. That is it for everything.
That's it.
That is it.
We have a.
You're adjourned.
Thank you for coming, everyone.
The commute.
No, we're good.
You students need